Today on the podcast, we have Ryleah. Ryleah is an event designer and producer specializing in brand activations and experiences. She's worked with brands you know and love like Lululemon, Arc'teryx, Dank Mart, and Bosa Properties. She's passionate about embracing color, taking creative risks, and taking up space. Ryleah, welcome to ThinkSpace.
Aw, thank you so much. I've been loving watching what you're doing with ThinkSpace, so I feel very lucky to be here.
Oh, you know what? You're actually one person who always tells me that you watch every week of ThinkSpace. And dude, I can't even tell you how much that means to me. Like, I would love to know, like, this is selfish first question, but like, what are you enjoying about ThinkSpace?
That's so funny because I actually didn't watch this week's and I was like, darn, my streak is over, but I'll catch up. So far, I'm really intrigued by the different variety in the guests. That's been so fun. Every week is just a new surprise and they just bring so many different topics to the table. So yeah, that's my favorite part so far.
Oh, I love it. Okay, so one of the reasons why I was so excited to have you on the pod is because I feel like you are such a dynamic thinker and you're so colorful and you have so much there is so much joy in your work. It's like expressed in your work. And I'm sure you see that. Like, do you feel that?
Kind. Yeah, I was reflecting on it a little bit recently where from day one, I've always said one of my brand values was playfulness or to play. And it's so funny. I had like a business mentor I was partnered up with a couple years ago. And she kind of looked at me and was like, play. I don't see the vision. But I do think that's such an important part of, my creative practice and just how I think and approach projects. So I'm happy to hear that that's coming through.
Oh, yeah. Like, I remember one Lululemon event we were doing together, and there was this, giant phone, and I was just so pumped. Yeah. Do you remember that?
Yes.
I just remember I was, so excited to take pictures with it, and then recently we just brought our niece over to your Tombolo.
Yeah.
Did I say it right?
Yep.
Yes. We just brought her over to Tombolo, and I was I loved, there was this ball pit that was, in a boat, and I was like, oh, this is just so fun. It's so immersive, and even the room with all the mushrooms and, the little log seats. And I was like, it makes me feel like it sparks my creativity. So I feel like you must just feel creative.
I mean, that's the fun thing about creative ideas is that once you get started, they kind of popcorn. So it's quite easy to keep jumping and you kind of have to. There's never going to be a time where something's perfect, so you kind of have to know when to walk away. But yes, it does generate more ideas, and the more you practice and the more you play, I don't know, it's endless. So.
And you're like, how much money do I have?
Yeah, exactly. It always comes down to that.
Okay, so I was reading on your website that you had said, to your mom, that I'm going to be an artist when I'm older. So tell me a little bit about, what did creative expression look like for you as a young person?
Oh my gosh, that's so funny to bring that up. Yeah. I would say my entire childhood, I always would say, I'm going to be an artist and didn't really know what that meant. And I mean, I feel like I liked practicing art the same amount as any kid did. I just had this voice in my head that this is what you're going to do. But that being said, I don't know. Okay. I don't know if I had natural born talent when it came to it. I just knew that was kind of a life I wanted to design around. And it took me a really long time to get here to kind of figure out what that looked like as a creative practice. But yeah, it's something I always felt called to do it.
Yeah. Okay, so talk to me about that. It took me a while to get here as a creative practice, right? So it's from what I'm understanding is it sounds like, hey, this expression was something that made me feel very me. I didn't know how it's going to work into my life. Obviously, I'm just a child. And then as you are growing up and you said in 2013 you moved here?
That sounds about right. Yeah.
Okay. So you're now taking this jump. You're moving from Edmonton to Vancouver. You're going to design school. What were you thinking?
Yeah, there were a few moments growing up where I came from what I call a sports family. It was very, very important to my parents that my sister and I were participating in some sort of sports. And we got to pick what it was, but we had to pick. And
you gon' play sports.
Oh yeah, for sure. It was and I really, really value that now. You learn so much about being on a team and confidence. And I tried so many different things, from soccer to diving to gymnastics to dance. We got a taste of all of it. But the entire time I was like begging to go do art classes, and that just like didn't really exist. So I was creative, but didn't really practice that for a long time. And then even in like high school, when I was trying to figure out where I was going to end up, I really wanted to go into interior design, but there were so many times, or even friends or people in my life who were like, would just to my face say, well, that's not a real career. That's not a real job. So even in picking interior design, I think, well, actually this ties back to Tombolo and why we do it, is that there is so many ways where you can have a creative career. And I kind of feel like there was certain points in my life where I was picking the most obvious ones, like artist, but like didn't paint, or, you know, like interior design. I loved physical settings and surroundings, but like once I actually went to design school, I was like, this is not for me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, tell me more about that, right? Because, I love how you said I picked the most obvious one. Tell me more about that. Like, let's double click on that. What do you think, like, when you say I picked the most obvious one? Why?
Okay. Well, I grew up in HGTV, like Trading Spaces, Sims. Like that was my whole, like I think that is the thing when I think about growing up. Like I was surrounded by these things, but it's really only like what, you know, was attainable or accessible at that moment. So like Sims did actually have a huge influence, and it was so funny being in design school. Like half the class was like, this is why I'm here.
a Sims head.
Right? Like, yeah. That's kind of how you dip your toe in, or like, yeah, all the reality TV shows were such a big deal. And so that's kind of how, to me, that felt like the obvious choice.
Well, even in there, you said like what you see. And like this is why it's so valuable to see people expressing what you may want to do or express, because like we believe most with our eyes. If I see it, I believe it, right? So it's like, it's one of those things that I feel like it's like, okay, maybe this is something that's attainable that I could have a good life with, like all that jazz.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're now in design school and you're not liking it?
No. I mean, there were elements that I really loved. I think something in the back of my mind, I think my entire, you know, career, there was moments where I had these gut feelings, but I didn't really know. I was just like, you know what, we're just going to follow where this like string leads us, but I didn't really know the answers. I knew exactly what I didn't want to do. And I couldn't always maybe articulate that, but coming out of design school, immediately knew I did not want to be in a firm. Like, and I think my one criticism I had of design school was they were very much like, once you're graduated, you're on the trajectory of being in an office and you will be sitting behind a desk for the next 5 to 10 years, only working on plans for other like senior designers, and that is your path. And I just don't think that was true. And so I remember sitting in class a lot of times being like, I'm not listening, la la la, like trying to tune
That is not my reality.
No, that's not.
Yeah.
So when I got out of design school, it felt, I don't know, something in my, I didn't even give it a solid try, to be quite honest.
Yeah.
I just knew I did not want to be in a firm or an interior design setting. Something about it felt a little bit more rigid than what I wanted to, like how I wanted to express myself. And yeah, I just didn't see myself even giving it a fair shot, to be honest.
Yeah. Okay, a question that kind of popped up for me in there is like how you're like sitting behind a desk. And whenever a lot of people are listening to, ourselves included, like a podcast like this, people will say like, oh, I just like could never like sit behind a desk and do that. What does that mean? Like, what is that feeling? How does that show up in your body? And like, how do you know that that's not something that you want?
Yeah, I have, well, I tend to power down for sure. Like I resist. I remember one job, the first job I had was still in a, you know, a creative role, and I had to like step in and help someone out with some like inputting of data in a spreadsheet. And they kept being like, I was getting written up because apparently no one thought I was actually doing it, but I was so slow because I was just, my body was like, we hate this so much. So I remember, yeah, that was pretty funny to get called on. I was like, I am trying my best. This is moving.
It's almost like your operational system doesn't work in that way.
Yes. Yeah. So I've had to override that, and like now running like the business side of things, oh my gosh, I've had to put a lot of that into practice. But yeah, there's a lot of shutting down, moving slowly, which I mean, I do use to my advantage now. Like, don't get me wrong, there's tasks you're just going to have to do, period. But I do try to tap into like, why do I feel the need to slow down in some aspects when I know like this task should be so easy? Or, you know, and a lot of the times it's because maybe that project wasn't meant to be and I already knew it in my gut, or like it wasn't my strength. And yeah, so I use it as a tell now. But
You know, something that I notice and recognize with you is that you're somebody who is very intuitive. And I'm very curious because like even before this, you were saying like, I followed like little hints of my gut. Like when did you start recognizing your intuition? Or like maybe you didn't have consciousness of it at that point, but like how did you develop that relationship with your gut and your intuition and like just that faith and knowingness and trust?
yeah, that's such a good question. Thank you for recognizing that.
You're like, I am so spiritual.
Spiritual tendencies, yes. You know what? I do have to say I have to credit a portion of it. I don't want to call it luck, but I've always just been really sure of who I am. And I think that does have a huge help. And I know maybe not a lot of people have that. But like at a really young age, I kind of was very sure in who I was. And like, I mean, bullied for it multiple times, but like nothing would make me waver. So I think by just doing that through like elementary and, you know, elements of high school, that always helped me just like stay true to my like North Star or my compass. But I also can recognize that might be a harder practice for others. But I've just always kind of been.
What does it mean to know who you are? Which is a hard question. I know you didn't walk in here thinking I'm going to answer this.
Yeah.
but even that, like, right, you're like, oh, like bullied for it, or like, but you did this like motion with your hands where it's like, I feel like it could be recognized as just staying strong in your core, right?
Yeah.
So like, what does that feel like for you to know who you are since from such a young age?
Yeah, that's the hard thing to articulate because I do feel a bit of it was so innate, I believe is the word. But I feel like if you do tap into your intuition or your gut and you feel like certain, you know, instances that say people come into your life, for example, and they're trying to, you can feel a pull off your course. Like, you know, you can feel that there's an alignment, or if someone's trying to even push back on maybe accepting who you are. And it could be something so little as like the clothes you're wearing or, you know, things like that. And if people are trying to pull you away from those elements, I do think you can practice, you know, feeling that pull.
Yeah, the tension. I love that you said that because that's such a somatic relationship with your body. Not surprised though, like even just like you saying like you were in sports and everything like that. Like when you have a connection with your body, your physicalness, I love that like idea of even just somebody coming into your life. It's like, is this person, you can kind of instantly know, does this person fill up my cup? Do they not? Like, how do I feel when they leave? How do I feel when I'm in conversation with them? And like, if you listen to that voice and you're clear with that voice, that can be a huge like unlock in life.
Yeah.
I think it is a huge unlock in life.
Yeah. I think it's a practice though, and you have to use it up against everything. Like you can do it up against, I don't know, sense of humor or music taste. You know what I mean? It doesn't have to be so larger than life. It just, you know, you can just feel if things don't resonate with your core, I guess. But yeah.
Yeah. So you knew that design world, firm life wasn't going to resonate with your core.
Oh, immediately. Like I did not even give it a try. And like, it's so funny because my momager, I call her.
Yeah.
I have asked, like throughout my course of my career and my life, like she has always been super supportive of me being entrepreneurial. But there was times where she's like, can you just give it a try? And I'm like, no. And I think she kind of watched like between her fingers sometimes, but was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then when I got to a point where, you know, quote unquote, I've made it, we kind of, it's so fun to look back in hindsight and be like, okay, it wasn't all in my head. Or maybe it was. It was all my gut, not in my head. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. It was,
Well, now you can see it.
Yes.
Now you can see it.
Yeah.
So what were some of the first steps that you took while your mom's peeking with one eye open?
I quit my job out of the blue and did not have a backup plan. But I was like, we got to get out of this situation. So that was kind of step one. And at the time, like I had my design background and I still wasn't sure what that was going to take on. So actually at that point, I don't know if this is if I read it in a book or if I made it up, but I called them swim lanes. Okay. And I basically did Post-it notes on a wall in my apartment. And I had like buckets that I was interested in. Mm-hmm. And I'd have them all lined up and have other ones being like, okay, this is what, the type of work could fall into this bucket. And I kind of just watched them like compete against each other until basically it showed which one that I loved the most. And events just like was always winning. Like that was kind of where
that
it took
is so
off.
freaking cool.
It's funny thinking about it now, but yeah. I kind of like made my passions fight each other.
Which one of you is going to win?
Yeah.
Okay, so events started like really hitting the top.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
so talk to me about events. How did you start getting into events?
I had always worked in the restaurant industry, and I think that's what I mean about like sitting behind the desk. I am not great with tech, computer, like that's just not my thing, but I love tangible, tactile types of tasks, and there's something so appealing about literally sketching on a napkin and running with it. And I think a lot of the gigs that I was getting at the beginning, because I was so new, people were reaching out to me who had really, really tight timelines, and they kind of, the other maybe larger companies couldn't accommodate them because of the timelines. So that's kind of how I was able to make a name for myself, and I was able to work quick, and which was really nice because they never expected technical drawings. It was literally on a napkin, like let's run with it. So that is kind of how I was able to like make that superpower of mine work to my advantage. Mm-hmm. So,
and when you're saying like, okay, so you're starting to get these projects, like at this point you're fully a contractor, like you've started a business, like what is the vibe?
Yeah, I always called myself a business, but I think in a lot of elements it was probably more freelance or more contracting. Like even now, it's solopreneur, I guess, and like the way I dip into other teams, it does have still an element of freelance and contractor. So probably when I was first starting out, it probably was way more freelance but I was faking it till you make it, and I was pretending we were a massive business. And even as I say we right now, it was me.
I love, we all do that.
You have to
do that. You have to.
Yes.
Why do you think it's so powerful to say we?
Well, because you're juggling 18 hats, and I think they all deserve a seat at the table.
They deserve their recognition.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh gosh. Okay, so you're going in, you're basically the hero firefighter, and you're putting it all together. What is a project that you did that was like, okay, like, this is juicy, I can learn from this, and I want to keep doing this?
Oh my gosh. It's such a cop-out to say every single one. I just learned so much. But I was very lucky right from the beginning. I had some really great friends who were producers, and they brought me on some of their projects as, in a creative role. So
So are you saying like art direction or like production design?
It still was it's so funny because when I first started, I feel like now we say event design, people are like, oh, I get it. I've been saying that for over 8 years, and everyone was like, I do not understand it. But I think it was like that breaking point of where Instagram was kind of taking over, where like brands and events of all kinds, even like look at how weddings have scaled, everyone's doing it for that curated look because you're going to get longevity in the photos. And so I kind of was positioning myself as like, I can come in and, curate the design or decor of these events. And at the time, I don't think a lot of people were doing it. Now it's almost expected of the planners
100%
to do both.
Yeah.
So, I would say it was in not as formal of a role as art director. It was more like, I can add value here, and I don't know, it sounds maybe frivolous, but there is, maybe we can't measure this value, but it will have longevity down the road. Yeah,
you were forward thinking about it.
I tried to be. I think I was watching a lot of oh my gosh, were you big on blogging? Like I loved, oh my gosh, I consumed so many
I was
blogs.
like a Tumblr hoe.
Yes, it's the best. And so I was following a lot of creatives in LA.
Yeah.
and who are blogging about it, and a lot of them were already doing this. So I think that's kind of where I was like, no, this exists. I remember even being in design school being like, I want to do this. Like, I want to be a prop stylist or a stylist. And they were like, you want to cut hair? Why are you here? And I was like, what?
You don't get it.
No. And now it's like we use these words.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So take me to an event, though, like where you actually got the opportunity to put all of these elements together.
Well, okay, my first gig right away was a dinner party series for a brand launch, and we did an interactive component. So when guests arrive, they could contribute to an activation. And so these events, I think, ran for 2 weeks. So as guests came throughout the week, the activation expanded. So we did an element of that. I did the tablescape, so all the decor that sits on the table, menus, place settings, and then we also did like a photo backdrop as well. So that was like right out of the gates. I was doing an event that kind of ties in, I would say, the 3 big elements that most events are looking for.
Yeah, like okay, when a person comes to an event, right? Like what are the things, because I agree with you now, like even I'm planning a birthday party and I'm like, I feel like I have to be like, I just want to throw a house party. Honestly,
sure.
like
Yes.
give them pizza.
Yes.
Let's drink.
Yes.
But I feel like I have to make it in a way where it's like, that people are going to take pictures. It's always for the pictures, yo. But it's like, people are going to take pictures. People are going to talk about it.
Yeah.
You know that people want an experience. And so like I'm going through all these things in my own head of like, okay, how do I put this all together in a way where they get something, right? But then now, like putting on my brand hat, it's so different. I need music, I need a vibe, I need an activation, I need experiential.
Yeah.
So like, what do you know that guests want out of an event? Like, what do we want out of an event that we don't even know that we want?
Oh my gosh. Well, that's okay. I think I would actually pull back from that and say it's not about necessarily what the guests want, because to be quite honest, they don't know what they want.
Yeah.
It's more about, I would challenge whoever's hosting. It could be something, like a birthday party, a wedding, or a corporate event. I think you have to just keep asking the question, why are you doing this, over and over until you get to like the root of it. And sometimes I think weddings are such a great example of this. Like, for example, signage. Signage has gotten out of control. Your wedding does not need this much signage. No. But if the why is no, you really need to articulate a rule to your guests that's very important to you, then that's valid. But is there another way you can put it? Could it be on the website? Could it be in the, maybe an email blast that goes out before? Or I think it also is, if the reason is you just want to be creative, that's a good enough reason for me. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I think you need to boil down, why are you doing this? And ask yourself, like exactly what you said about the guest experience and like what the guests want, until it, like, again, I'm going to say, sits with your intuition or your North Star, like you have to gut check these things, I think.
So like, okay, let's say you're talking to a mid-sized company, right? And they're going to throw an event and they have budget, but it's a limited budget. So like, I always love to like kind of think about this in my head. There's the person, like, well, let's just use $10,000. There's a person who has $10,000 and they can throw it around. It's like, they've lost $10,000 before. They've made $10,000 before. They've had wins and losses with it.
Yeah.
Then there's the other person who that $10K is like, it means a lot to them and they need it to work. And they're a little bit like not penny pinching because of the money, but penny pinching because they've never done something this big before.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
So like, let's say you're talking to that person who's like just throwing an event for the first time. Like when you're asking them why, like what kind of things, are you typically like hearing from them? Like what do they want to give to their guests?
Yeah, well, it depends on the company or the person you're working with, but I think what I would challenge to that is, or like what could you incorporate into your, boiling it down to the why, is sometimes with brand recognition, it's all about earning trust. And so if you're creating experiences where people can maybe engage with your brand in a way where they, maybe learned something or received an experience that was so unique or special that it's going to resonate with them, you might not see the direct ripple of that, but you are creating a sense of community and belonging, or like mainly trust with, that's hypothetically say a brand. And I do think there's value in that.
Yeah. Yeah. I Yeah, I totally agree. Because even when you're talking right now, so I used to, back in the day, I had a marketing gig where I would like do experiential marketing. And so I was hired by so many different types of brands like TELUS, Nutella, Pepsi, like Dempster's. My brother always makes fun of me. He's like, why do you have a Dempster shirt? I'm like, cuz, all right, I'm hustling
The rite
out
of
here.
passage.
Yeah. But it's like, yeah, why do I have a Dempster shirt? But it was like such a memorable brand moment. And it was like one of those things where I felt like I understood their brand and their why and their company in such a different way versus like other brand activations I've worked. I'm just like, what is this? You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
I do.
Where there's just like, it feels like there's no purpose or soul to it. So I love how you're always like constantly bringing it down to like a why.
Yeah.
Let's go to like Lululemon Summerfest because we worked on that event together.
Yeah.
And, you know, Summerfest is for their staff, correct? Where
Yes.
they just get an opportunity to just be in joy. And you put together such a cool event. Like when you're putting together an event at like that scale, what are some of the things that you're thinking about? Like what are some of the things that you're thinking about?
Oh my gosh. Well, I'm very lucky that Lululemon, that company and the team I work with there gives me such a playground. Like there's no bad idea. They really let me throw anything at the wall and, massage it and see what works and see what doesn't. So I've been very lucky with those projects. That one is such a unique event because of the scale, but you're getting such a range of groups of people. So you've got like the crowd who really just want some quiet one-on-one time. And they're just looking for an activity that they can, do in a small group out in a field, like in the grassy areas of the event or, something a little bit more low key. And then you've got like the hyper competitive crowd who which
I think we were dealing with the hyper competitive crowd. But as you said, like, oh my God, you're so right. Because an event that scale, like even if you look at a company like that, you have such a diversity of expression of people.
Yes.
And so like even how you're like kind of makes me think of festivals, right? Like music festivals. It's like you need such a variety of setups to serve everybody because we were definitely in the so just for context for anybody who's listening, Dank Mart was a part of this event and we created a Dank Mart boardwalk where we had games and we had activations. So we were definitely with the hyperactive crowd, the people who were like, oh my God, I want to be in every line, I want every pin, I want this and that. But you made it such an event and now in my mind I'm seeing those chairs, just those lawn chairs where people are just
they're
chilling.
Full. They're packed.
They're full.
Yeah. Or
oh my gosh.
The beating station, like bracelet.
Yes.
This is pre-Taylor Swift even. They
Guys.
went bonkers for
Yes.
the friendship bracelets.
Yeah.
But to that point, we did, Dank Mart helped out 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
So we were really able to watch what happened for the first year as like a case study. And we were able to springboard off of that to create like the boardwalk experience because people were just so engaged at I don't want to like call it a booth because it was so much more than that, but the first experience, you know? So then it was like, how do we delay the gratification and also make sure more people are engaged and no matter what level, again. So there was like, 8
Which is just so interesting. The psychology of that.
It's fun.
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun to like think about an event that way. But that one is like such a, I don't know how to say
It's
it.
unique.
It's very unique
very
experience. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so you're thinking about the people who want to chill. You're thinking about the people who want to be busy. And so like, how do you surface people differently? Like walk us through that.
Yeah, you want to make sure there's still value to each experience. And there's also, I think, flow is such an important part of that event too, is that you need to make sure, the activations are circulating and people, you're encouraging people to flow throughout the venue as well. But sometimes we've had to like think outside of the box and try to bring the entertainment to them as well. So just because the event just expands such a large venue. But yeah, it's a lot of like, you do kind of have to create three. There is a third. There's like the hyper competitive, the kind of quieter one. And there's the third who kind of just wants to dabble in everything. So you kind of create almost like these archetypes and make sure, like budgets and experiences are spread equally throughout.
Yeah, something else like that just kind of makes me think about like just talking about Dank a little bit. One of the reasons why I love Dank so much is because of how bright and colorful and like expansive it is. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And that's like what I was talking about earlier when we first sat down is like that's something that I find so engaging about you as a person and just like with your work in general is like I feel like you're not afraid of color. And I'm sure you work with so many brands who are like muted, like pastels, all that jazz, right? Like we all, like we're millennials, of course that's what we're gonna like, right? But like when you think of color and the use of color, how do you think about it? And I'll tell you why I'm thinking about this. So for example, when I started to expand just like as an individual, as a person, started feeling more comfortable in my body, in my experience as a human, I noticed that I started wearing a lot more color. LOL for anyone who's watching the YouTube, I'm wearing all black. But I love wearing color now. And I think it's more like I'm willing to be seen.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to just like express and like all that jazz. So like when you're thinking about a space and the expression of a space, like how do you think of color and its role in that?
Yeah, I think I am lucky in that I work corporate. So most of the time there is a little bit of color that we can bounce off with at least at first. But that being said, I remember when I first, started freelancing or working for myself, I deliberately used a lot of color. And I kind of think to myself, if I didn't do what I do for work or had to do that choice with branding, would I be drawn to this much color? Like, it's so funny. I wonder what my like personality would be if I don't know. But so I did deliberately make that a choice with
And why did you deliberately make that a choice?
because I feel, back, like you said, I think color is way more accepted now. Like it's making a comeback. Like this maximalist,
Facts.
it's coming. Like
Yeah.
we've waited. The time has
What was her
come.
name? Betsy Johnson. You remember Betsy Johnson?
yes.
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 I love her use of color.
Playing the long game.
Yeah.
Yes. But like Vancouver was known for, the glass and the gray and I just so badly wanted to be noticed that I was like, I am going to be so loud. And
Yeah.
so my brand was all pastels, and it kind of went through an evolution where now I feel like it's in its like teenage phase, where that was like it's in its like little kitty, but like it worked at the time, but then
Yeah.
it's like evolving. But it did help me get noticed, and I think it worked that then brands could get comfortable seeing color in action. And so I did make that like my core element for sure, but it does help. It just helps tell stories. Like there's, you can associate so many colors with stories. So it does a lot of the heavy lifting for you.
And would you not say that like storytelling is such a huge thing about like such a huge part of what you do?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
Yes.
like for like let's take it to Tombolo, like just zoom in all the way to like this year, but like you turned your entire studio into a story, the clubhouse into a story. So like, can you kind of walk us through like just creating something like that and just like define Tombolo for anybody who's listening who doesn't know what it is?
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 years ago, my co-producer, Anita, a dear friend of mine, approached me looking, she's an illustrator, and she had this idea where she wanted to create an art gallery for kids where they could showcase their artwork as if it was, in a real gallery setting. And the irony is that when we first were brainstorming this idea, it was so funny because we clearly didn't figure this out, but we weren't even sure if the kids were going to be involved in it. It was almost like we wanted adults to come and experience the artwork. So with that, it's become an event where like it's of all ages. Like you can come and experience, yes, this kid's artwork. And then at the same time, these kids are so proud to show off their work and show that they're part of a collective and they're part of something. So that's kind of how it started. That's kind of the main core of it. But then with it, Anita is, like I said, an illustrator. So she kind of created almost like a picture book, but we instead turned each room into like a walking exhibit and something interactive and tangible for kids or like young at heart to do. And yeah, that's kind of where it's jumped off from. We definitely have plans for it for coming years, but yeah, this year was our second year.
And why do you think it's like so important to create those like immersive experiences? Like what does that do?
yeah, I think there's something to be said for, you know, having a physical touch point for things. You just grasp. I think that's how you actually create memories, is when you do a tangible component. Yeah, so I think the interactive element was just like kind of creates the soul to the event and just kind of almost like creates a through line through everything.
Yeah. I feel like the that's actually such a beautiful way of saying it. Like, the interactive element is what creates the soul of the event, because I think that's one of the things about an event that's just so fabulous, is the fact that you can take that memory with you, and then that's the experience that you remember, and that's actually how you remember brands, places, things.
Yeah, exactly. That like definitely goes back to what we were talking about with installations and activations, and when you're trying to build that brand trust, having something tactile and interactive, like that's what's creating the memories. And yeah, and then it also, I think, creates almost like this chain effect where now you're more likely to share the story of what you experienced. So that could be talking about the product indirectly, or, you know, a community event like Tombolo, where you're, you know, talking about the experience you had, and hopefully more people will come check it out.
Oh my God, yeah. Like, I want kids I know to put their stuff in there. I think it's so cool. I had so much fun as an adult.
That was the main goal, so I'm so happy to hear that.
Yeah. Okay, I want to switch gears a little bit. I would say one of the things that I've absolutely loved about connecting with you, like, the most.
Oh, no.
I mean, there's a lot of things. But one of the things that I've loved connecting with you about is just ambition, right? And a big theme that I'm noticing on this podcast is ambition and like our relationship to it, our experience with it. So I'm very curious to ask you, like, what does your ambition feel like in this moment of your life in comparison to what it has felt like in different moments of your life?
Oh man. Yeah, I've been struggling with that a bit this year, just because, I don't know, this was the first year, you know, it's so different when you approach things in your 20s, you know? You're a little bit more reckless. There's a little bit more, you can be a little bit more selfish. And, you know, as you get older, priorities shift and, you know, life happens. And so this is the first year that I've had to kind of, I wouldn't say slow down, but there's just things that have been out of my control where it's like, okay, we need to, you know, take care of yourself before, you know, fueling the business. So that's how I would say ambition has changed in the most recent years. But I'm sure I've told you this before, but I just always consider things, or like my career, as a video game. Like, it just feels like you're constantly, you know, you're on a certain level maybe, and then you kind of like level up. And so that kind of has always been how I've seen ambition is, you know, this is just the video game level I'm currently on, and I'm going to learn certain skills from it. I might go back a couple levels perhaps, but I don't know. That's just kind of given me maybe like a mental clarity or visual around, you know, what ambition looks like to me.
Yeah, you know, one of my mentors, her name is Samantha. She always says, like, if it's your life's work, what are you in the rush for? And I'm like, you don't know me. And I'm like, I'm in a rush. But it's so true. Like, if it's your life's work,
yes,
right?
Yeah.
What are you in the rush for? And it's one of those things where, and I think this is true for you, but I can share this for myself and like my business partner, where it's like, I feel like we like, I always describe this to people, like, we found the lot. For so long, people look for the lot. What do I want to do?
Yeah.
What am I good at?
Yeah.
And it's just like, when you have the lot, you're like, okay, cool. Now I'm going to build the house. And, you know, you have the foundations, and then you're going to start making it pretty. And then you're going to start adding stuff and decor, and then you're going to start living in it. And it's like, I feel like that's where I'm at. Like, I've arrived for a while where I want to be and where I want to play. And now it's like, how do I build the high rise here, right?
Yeah.
And so, like, for you, like how you're describing that as like levels, like I have this perception of you where you feel like you've arrived in like the world or the realm that you want to play in.
Yes.
And then it's like, okay, well, how do I keep increasing this, or like, how do I make the most of this? When you think about how do I make the most of it, like, what are the elements in your life that you're like, yo, this really helps fuel me as an individual and my ambition and just like my spirit as I'm on this path?
Oh my gosh. That's a tough question. I I think it does help that I think like whether it's a project or, a next step, there's always going to be an element that you are trying to learn or figure out. And so that definitely lights me up, the problem solving aspect of it, I would say. And I'm lucky that so much of my career and the projects I do, an element I'm hired for is to solve problems. So that it kind of becomes, I think anyone who, works for themselves or is entrepreneurial there's an element of it that is addictive. It just is. But at the same time, it is so inspiring. And it just like, that's kind of like my driving force is like, okay, there's a problem here. Let's solve it. And even if it's a creative problem, you're thinking something through. So that definitely is what drives me, I'd say.
Mm-hmm. And then what supports you?
I'm figuring that out.
Tell me more.
I think that's what I mean about, how things, I'm not in my 20s anymore. I used to like pull all-nighters and that stuff doesn't light me up like it used to. I used to love that. I used to love being like the Energizer bunny and like, you just get things done. And I do think there's elements, I can still tap into it for sure, but things shift and now I'm, learning about your nervous system and I'm taking walks and I love to journal now, which I did not see coming. So that's just where I'm in this phase where I'm learning my ambition is changing, or maybe it's like maybe it's not always the driver. It's not always in the driver's seat. But
how have you navigated?
I've cried a lot. I cry so much.
I cry. Yeah.
All the time.
Because it's a big difference. I remember there was a season when I was a young entrepreneur and I wouldn't call myself an entrepreneur at that point. I was just a young person trying to figure it out. Like where I was so like down for the cause, will do anything, like you're saying, the all-nighters, but also where that like there was an ego to it. And I don't know if you had this, but like, I'm so busy. I'm working so hard. And now I'm like, fuck, my ego's like, I want to be the person who says, I'm chilling.
Yeah. Well, doesn't it seem unfair though? Because I think it's an element of you've put in the hours and you've kind of like, you've earned that. That sounds horrible. I was going to say that you've earned the right to rest, which is not true. But you're just in different phases of life, right?
Yeah.
So again, if we're going to pull it back to a video game, that level is done. And, I've paid my dues. I've proved I can do it. Who asked me to prove it? I don't know, but I had to prove it to someone.
Part of it is proving it to yourself. Like,
yeah, 100%.
I was actually talking to one of my coaching clients and they were saying like, we were talking about play, right? Ironically, we started this conversation about play, but they were talking about how they found it so hard to bring themselves to their business because they were like, I'm goofy and I'm jovial and playful, but I felt like I had to be like professional and serious. And I was like, well, why can't you be both?
Yeah.
And they're just like, it took me so long to realize I could just be both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so beautiful.
Do you feel like you can be both?
Well, exactly like we said at the beginning, where I was like, I don't know, I was probably 22 with this mentor I got assigned, and I was like, she had me write my values, and I was like, number 1, playfulness. Number 2, open-mindedness. I don't remember what the other ones were, and she was like, no, that's not a metric. Like, and I was like,
that's so interesting.
But I was like, okay, I think we're done here. Like, that was such an important part of my practice.
The fact that you said we're done here, that makes me so happy because trust me, I wrote down a lot of values. I do this for a lot of people. And those are incredible, beautiful values.
That's the most ironic test of it all?
Yeah.
I say my values and she's like, no. And I was like, okay.
Okay, sorry, peace out, because these are my values. Yes. Like, oh my God. As you are navigating this new season of ambition, this new, I love that you say the video game because I'm always like, I always think of Mario eating the coins. Yeah. And I'm just like, I almost, the visual that I get for you is like you are walking towards the coin and then you're going to bulb up and then it's like you're on the new level, right? So like in this new, and you forgive me if I'm wrong, you tell me if I'm wrong, but like at this new stage of your ambition and like whatever's coming next, like what are you excited about for in life right now?
Yeah, I mean, I have a few new projects on the horizon that I'm excited about. And I think like we were talking about timelines or things like that, where I think a lot of the times we put the timelines and the deadlines on ourselves. And, it's going to take the time. that it's gonna take, and until I'm like rested and can be ready to tackle these, which I think I am. Like I do think the last 6 months I was like, okay, we need to slow down and, you know, prioritize. We need to cry.
Yeah.
And I think that's because I was going against, you know, like it felt like I was going against the person I always was, but that person wasn't serving me anymore. That's where the tears.
You outgrew yourself.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
And I think that's, again, back to the video game. That's such, it's so humbling when you like graduate a level.
Yeah.
If you will, because you feel like you're on the top and you're like, okay, I'm ready for the next big thing. So you maybe take on more scope and take on new challenges and, you know, push yourself harder. And then you're like, oh, I'm a beginner again. And you have to reshift. So I think in this last year, I've definitely gone through a business shift. And with that, you have to figure out
to reorientate. Like my mom always says, like, you know, there's that classic saying of like, your ceiling has now become your floor. And my mom's like, yes, that's a beautiful visual. She's like, but when you think about it, like you're a 12th grader and now you're going to being a junior again, like that is so much easier for me to conceptualize, where it's like, okay, yeah, like maybe in let's like 7th grade, for example, and then now you're in 8th grade, you're in a different zone, right? So it's just like, you're the baby again. And then you have to also like, you have to like face that part of you who's like willing to not be great at something, who's willing to try, who's willing to like not, I don't know if it's overcoming fear. This is something that I'm like gnawing with in the background. Like, do we overcome fear, or do we just do we strengthen our courage and bravery muscles and do it anyways? And like, instead of fear driving the seat, like what if fear is just in the passenger?
Yeah,
because fear, you need fear.
Yeah. I'm going to butcher this, but I'd heard somewhere that we're kind of wired to resist being uncomfortable. And so every day, like especially when you have these new tasks, you have to like kind of, I don't know, go against, you know, yourself sometimes and get uncomfortable in order to do the next step. Like you're wired to just stay safe. And I think that is really hard sometimes to overcome, especially if you don't have coworkers or, you know, other people who are kind of doing what you're doing that you can speak to or talk to. And you have to like, you know, I think entrepreneurship is just constantly looking yourself in the mirror and looking at all your like dark sides every day.
It's literally personal development on crack.
Oh, it's intense. It's humbling.
And you know what's crazy? It's like one of the things I had to grow out of is thinking that everyone thought like that. Every entrepreneur thought like that. I think when I was a junior and I was like, okay, like maybe I can do this, I was really humbled by the idea, thinking like, oh, everyone is like on their personal development journey. Everyone's thinking consciously about this. And then you'll meet some people and you're just like, oh no, that's not everybody. You know, so it's like almost like a bigger ask of yourself when you're like, okay, how are you going to navigate entrepreneurship? How are you going to navigate this level of ambition? How are you going to navigate I want to say almost like your design in this life?
Yeah. No, I think there's so many ways. I think that's a very like a beautiful thing. And what I've kind of resisted over the years too is that, you know, the way I approach a problem is going to be so different than how you approach the problem. And that doesn't mean either of us is wrong. We're just taking a different path. And I think that's what makes us unique. And yeah.
Oh my God. I think it's like, you know, that I think is a lot of self-compassion and compassion for like the self-compassion will then bleed into other people when you can allow everyone's creativity to come to the table and work together. And like that could even be like, regardless if you're an entrepreneur, or if you're a leader, or if you're just if you're not just, but like if you're a creative on a team or a person on a team, it's like, how do I actually create space for ideas to start to meld and like become something as one when they're being contributed from so many different people? And like, as you're saying, like even just using what you were talking about when it came to Lululemon, like how they let you like, there's the opportunity to kind of throw things around, gnaw them out, and just like see like, does this work? Does this not work? And some things will and some things won't. But it's so cool to see the final thing.
Yeah. It's very rewarding.
Oh, I bet. And that's like one of the things that I think about your work all the time. And I think about our work all the time is like to see the final product is so cool because you know what it took to get there.
Okay. But talking about self-care, the hardest thing I've learned. And I think this is true for a lot of people, you know, in events or, you know, adjacent professions, is then you have to learn how to manage the come down of that, because it is such a high seeing your like something being the execution of something. So managing that, like the come down of that high is.
Talk to me about that. Like, what is the come down of that high? Because I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, you just need a lot of, that's just like, I'd say that's where my like self-care comes in overdrive, because it's a lot of emotions, high pressures, quick timelines. Like, it's just a lot of adrenaline 24/7, and just a lot of ideas that you're like, I don't know if this is, I think it's going to work. I've done everything in my power to try to make it work. And then to see it pull off, it's just, and then I think there's an element of actually watching people enjoy the experience. Like, yeah, the highs are high, and then, but then it's very humbling when you're cleaning up the mess after, and it's like, I don't know, 3 a.m. and you're like, but where's the party? So it just kind of like, it's a quick shift too. So,
you know, one of the things that I had to learn in that process is like, when I would essentially come down, I was like, it's like, what is the quality of my thoughts? What are the quality of my thoughts at this time? Because you can make it so much about your worthiness, your value, your experience, or you could just like, this is biological. This is like running a race. The race is over, and now I need to fucking chill, right? And that has nothing to do with the value and all that shit. That we can kind of like look at logically once we're back in our logical brain. You know what I mean? But when you're emotional about it, it's like, how do you just like go to a sauna, chill, go to yoga, do something to like really reset your nervous system to then be able to look at things from a different lens?
Yes, totally. Yeah. Yes, I agree.
Okay, so as we wrap up, for somebody who is looking to get into dynamic space, they know that they're multi-passionate, they have lots of different elements to them. Like, what's a piece of advice that you have for somebody like that who's just trying to figure out what they're doing?
I would say just keep experimenting. I think so much about life in general is that, like I said, how I choose to do something is going to be very different than how you choose to do something. That doesn't mean anyone's right or wrong. So just, sometimes I don't understand why there's not more experimenting allowed, maybe, you know, culturally, like us, you know, in the day and age we're living in. So you're really like, and I hope this doesn't come across as like like from a privileged lens, but you really truly can't screw up that badly. You know, if you go into school and you don't like it, that it's okay. Pivot, you know, like you're out of a little bit of money, you know, it will, you know, find its way. But like, I just wish there was more emphasis on experimenting and figuring it out and ask questions and hang out with cool people that know more than you do.
Oh my God, that part.
Yeah.
Riley, where can people find you online?
Oh my gosh. Well, my Instagram's Ryleah Shea, and that's also my website, ryleahshea.com.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. This was so fun.